welcome. This is Daniel Patterson with Patterson Perspective here. We have a very special guest joining us tonight at Corona Del Mar High School, MC Yogi. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We are at the end of a four-part series called the Seeking Speaker Series, where we bring in sort of creatives or inspirational touch points and put them in front of our parents and our students to try to help them connect and find their passion within and who they are and the path. And you have a very storied journey that has led you to be quite a big deal. I mean, you have that little blue check on Twitter, so you know
Oh, really?
You've arrived.
Wow.
Do you know how long you've had that?
No, I didn't even know about that.
That's good. Yeah, that means you're legit,
Wow.
as the kids say. So tell me a little bit about your journey from youth to when you discovered yoga. I want to start there.
Yeah, so one fun fact is that you and I were born in the same room.
That's right.
The same hospital, almost on the same day.
That's right.
And your dad walked into the room and he thought that I was you. So we might have got mixed up at birth.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, we look kind of similar.
We might be in the wrong chair.
So you and I go way back.
That's right.
And I'm so happy to be here because I haven't seen you in a while. It's nice to reconnect.
Yes, thank you.
And so my story sort of begins, the beginning is probably the Big Bang. That's where it all kind of started. But in terms of like when I sort of began this journey of becoming a yogi, I was, when I was about 14 years old, I had been kicked out of about 3 schools, had been arrested, 2 or 3 times for graffiti. I was a graffiti artist and was just running with a lot of kids at that time in the Bay Area who were involved with drug dealing, narcotics. One of my friends was on the FBI's top 10 list.
Oh, wow.
We were messing around with guns. Like I had a loaded gun when I was 14 in my backpack. We used to steal my dad's car and take it out every night to go paint graffiti all around the city until we totaled the car. I was getting into all kinds of bad trouble.
Right.
And it got to the point where I realized that if I were going to go down this path, it was sort of a dark, dead end. A lot of my friends, some of the kids I grew up with committed suicide, some had overdosed on drugs, some joined the military, went off to serve or had kids really young, teen pregnancy and stuff like that. So I think I had sort of a moment where I realized I was going to have to change something in my life in order to change the direction where I was headed.
Right.
So I think it was after one of my arrests, I realized that I had to sort of get out. But I didn't have any way of getting out. I didn't understand how to change. And then my mom presented me with this idea of going to live at this group home. Because my parents were divorced and I was kind of getting caught up in between, both of my parents'
Right.
house and kind of getting away with a lot of stuff.
Right, on both sides.
So I didn't have any structure. And so I decided that I was going to give this group home a try. And I ended up living there for 2.5 years. It was really good for me because it provided discipline. It was a great family sort of environment. I lived in a house with 12 other sort of juvenile delinquents. We became really good friends, like family. And then I got kicked out of that as well. So I kept getting kicked out of every program, fired from every job, and I was just, stumbling through life, no direction, no purpose. And I had sort of a come to God moment when I realized that if I was going to change, I would have to get back into that program. So I wrote a letter, and of all the kids who got kicked out, because they had kicked out both group homes, I was the only one they let in, because I kept knocking on the door and I wouldn't take no for an answer.
To go back.
To go back. There was some part of me that just knew that if I didn't get back into that program, I wasn't going to make it. And so when I graduated that program, when I finally got my diploma, I graduated late, I discovered yoga thanks to my dad. And that really began my sort of my path back into myself, realizing that I was the problem and that I was also the solution.
Wow.
And that's when things really started to shift and change.
And then when did you actually take on the practice of formal training to be able to teach?
Pretty quick. Like I first practiced yoga when I was about 17.
Okay.
And the moment my feet touched the yoga mat for the first time, I felt like I had landed, like I was home.
Right.
It was what I was looking for. And right after that first practice, I became just insatiable. I wanted to know everything possible I could about the practice of yoga. So I started reading books, really some really powerful books like Autobiography of a Yogi, Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. There's some real pivotal books that really helped me along my way. And then I started seeking out teachers. And I was really lucky that my dad introduced me to his teacher, whose name was Larry Schultz, who studied yoga, or taught yoga to the Grateful Dead. And he took me under his wing and became my mentor. I moved in to his studio in San Francisco. And basically, from the first time I practiced yoga, my whole life became 100% all about yoga.
Right. Did you find that yoga was absorbing that sort of creative energy that you were kind of spilling into different directions in your life?
Yeah, 100%, because I grew up like rapping and battling and
Right.
freestyling. You know, I've been involved in hip hop since I was like 7 or 8 years old. And when I started practicing yoga, it started to give me a clear direction and purpose, and it helped me to harness and kind of braid all this energy that I was sort of all over the place.
Right.
Helped me to focus it and ground it in my body. And I found it was amazing, like all these doors started opening. Like I just started connecting and meeting all these people and just all this inspiration, and all of a sudden like my life just started to take on this whole other meaning. Like I started to feel like I was here for a reason.
Right. Interesting. And then one thing that people watching should know is that you're a phenomenal musician, hip hop artist, and you've sort of created a genre all of its own. I don't know. I think of the vibe of the music that you produce. It's unlike a lot of what I've heard.
It's pretty unique.
And so, how did you carve into that niche?
I think one thing that yoga taught me is that things that you don't think work together, opposites, actually have a hidden harmony.
Right.
And if you live your life feeling like you're struggling between these pairs of opposites, this duality, then you're always sort of getting battered by the battle of, you know, dark and light and all these things that don't mix.
Right.
But through yoga, I found a way. It was sort of like alchemy. I found a way to take everything that was hurting me and everything that was helping me and utilize both sides to create some balance and consistency. So it's not like I was like squashing all my demons and they were never going to be there again.
Right, yeah.
It's like I was utilizing that same energy that was getting me in trouble. I was just harnessing it and using it to be creative instead of destructive.
Yeah, repurpose it.
Repurpose it.
Absolutely. That's a lot of my own personal journey as well. Having, and I write about this, it's no secret, but about 3 years ago I quit drinking alcohol. I don't have a sexy story really. There was no key event. It was just, I felt like it was reverse osmosis. It was taking my creative energy and taking it out of my body. So when I cut that off, and I felt this huge wave of creativity that needed an outlet. And then I started writing and working with intervention programs like One Recovery, the nonprofit, who you're supporting by speaking here today. So I get it. I feel like you have to repurpose that creative energy. It's not an on-off, I guess. It doesn't have to be either or. It just has to be redirected.
And you have to, I mean, in my experience, you have to be a little relentless.
Right.
You have to be a little maniacal when it comes to your creative process. You have to utilize every ingredient that you have and put it toward that direction. So like, you know, for addiction is like...
I think that I'm hearing like just lots of people coming in and out of their offices.
Okay.
And I thought maybe...
This is actually worse.
Fans.
This, yeah, but we're good.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a sip. Yeah, I think, it's better than what I would have done on my own, you know.
No, this is great, man. Because I think our nature as human beings, the way the mind works, is we're all addicts on some level. We all cling, we all get attached, we all seek that pleasure. And then, you know, like we have a friend in common, Noah Levine, author of Dharma Punks and Against the Stream. I've been spending a lot of time with him this year, doing a lot of events with him. And he leads the meditation and the mindfulness, and I teach the yoga and do the music.
Right.
And one of the things that I really gleaned from him was that that's natural. Like it's not our fault. The mind is just kind of programmed to not want pain. And so we seek ways of, you know, finding pleasure, and we cling to that pleasure because we don't want pain. But in the process of clinging and becoming attached, we end up creating more pain.
Right.
So this idea that through our practices, through breathing, meditation, mantras, like all this spiritual technology, it helps us to kind of move through life in a more graceful, fluid way, so that we're not sticking or clinging or fighting or struggling with ourselves as much.
Right.
It keeps us kind of in the flow in the moment.
Right.
That's been so helpful for me.
Well, speaking of staying in the flow, I know that you travel a ton.
A lot, yeah.
You just got done with a 7-year stint at Wanderlust, traveling thousands and thousands of miles and promoting your various projects. How do you stay grounded in that constant movement?
I think so. I'm really lucky. I'm really blessed because for the most part, I get to travel with my creative partner and best friend, my wife Amanda, who's also a great artist. She's on social media as 10,000 Buddhas.
Right.
She's a muralist, so we have that in common. She's been painting 10,000 Buddhas all over the world, so we get to travel together.
Mm-hmm.
So usually we wake up in the morning, we have a sitting practice. We practice postures, breathing, all the sort of tools that we've gained from our teachers.
Mm-hmm. We
kind of utilize that on the road. It helps us to kind of stay grounded and reset when we're dealing with all those time changes and stuff.
Right.
I think looking back over the past 7 to 10 years, I think we've taught yoga to over 500,000 people.
Wow.
And so one of the things that I find gives me energy is like giving to others.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm showing up for other people and sort of getting out of the way, but really being present, holding space, it doesn't drain me. It gives me more energy.
Right.
I think when I find that I'm showing up just for myself, then I feel drained. But when I'm really showing up to be of service and to do something awesome for everybody involved, I feel recharged by that.
But yeah, I just saw in Santa Monica a few weeks ago, there's an image of you doing yoga, and there's what looks to be thousands of people.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's fun.
that is fun.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of spandex.
Yeah, it's a lot of spandex you're supporting.
Yeah.
A lot of Lululemon up in there. Moving forward, your newest creative project is a book that you are, I guess, in the process of finishing or editing.
Another thing we share in common.
That's right. I'm also finishing a book, which will be slated to be released in January
Nice.
of 2018. But yours is Spiritual Graffiti, which makes sense now, given what we've learned about you so far. But tell us a little bit about that experience.
So the essence of spiritual graffiti is what I realized in the process of writing about my journey, from struggling and really not having a purpose and then finding my path. What I realized is that a lot of things that didn't make sense back then when they were happening, when I stepped back and looked at them with a greater perspective, all the sort of mistakes and marks and drips and paint and splatter, what was a mess at the time. When I stepped back from this sort of deeper perspective of having practiced yoga and meditation now for 20 years, I can look back and see that chaos is really quite beautiful. It's like graffiti. Like if you're really close to it, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
But when you step back and if you know how to decode the letters and if you know about graffiti art, you can look back and really appreciate like what it took, that long twisted journey that sort of led me here. And so looking back, I can see that everything that happened was like a brushstroke or like,
Right.
an application of some texture, some layers, some color. And now I'm looking at the composition, I'm like, man, it's like I'm just blown away at like, how life takes us on this path that's so unexpected and so amazing.
So with your book, who do you think your target audience, or who are you hoping that it speaks to the most?
My wife, she's my target audience.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because more than anyone else, she really helped me through the process. I was a horrible student growing up. There were times when I got like straight Fs, even in art, and I'm an artist. And the idea of writing a book was like the most massive form of homework that anyone could ever assign me.
Right.
And thanks to her, it became just a total joy, because instead of it being this sort of overwhelming pressure, I approached it as like looking back on my life and kind of making sense of it. And she helped me so much. And she was there for most of it. We met and fell in love in the first day of our yoga teacher training back in 2000. And there's some cool stories in the book about how we met and fell in love and what I did to kind of win her heart. So I hope that she really enjoys it, because it wouldn't happen without her.
Right. Yeah, writing a book can be very daunting.
It's epic, man.
Think about if you get lost in how many words you need or how many words you have or don't have. But what it is, it's an opportunity to interpret or reflect on that sort of those brushstrokes, as you said. I know in writing my own book, it's been a cautious journey of, the book I'm writing is called The Authentic Teen. It talks about parenting down the middle, or helping kids be who they are, not who you imagine they should be, or who you don't want them to be.
I think that was a huge source of suffering for me growing up.
Right.
Not that my parents did anything bad, but like just the whole system how it was set up.
Right.
It wasn't set up to really meet me where I was.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, because I went to like Catholic school and public school, and it felt like the whole industrial educational sort of conditioning was all about getting me to fit into their sort of model.
Right.
And I did not fit in at all. Like I stuck out like a square peg.
Right.
And then it just created a lot of problems. So I didn't really have, like the tools that you have now. Like, I'm so grateful for the work you're doing. I wish I could have had a book called The Authentic Teen when I was in high school, because I could have bypassed a lot of this suffering.
Yeah, and I think school today is becoming more customizable.
Yeah.
And families need that, and kids live in such a virtual, customizable Starbucks kind of mentality. How many?
We didn't have the internet, man.
No, nothing. I remember, I'm going to sound old now, but I had my first cell phone when I graduated from college.
What'd you have, a flip phone?
I had a flip phone. And
Nice.
I always tell the story,
Did you have
but
a pager?
I did not have a pager. Of course you did. Of course you did. I did not. My parents, there's no way my Jim Patterson was going to give me a pager. Are you kidding me? But I tell this story a lot, though. These kids today, I was working with one of them whose parents were going to take away his phone. And actually what they decided to do, instead of actually taking away his phone, they just gave him a flip phone.
Oh,
Because
wow.
that was actually worse.
It's just a phone.
It was just worse than actually having, because they could still get a hold of him, but he couldn't do anything. And you got a text, you got to press it 3 times to
Yeah, it
get to
takes a
see.
while, man.
The struggle's real. Definitely, the struggle's real when your parents give you a flip phone. But yeah, in writing my book, just the word count is very daunting. But how much of yourself are you pouring? How much of those of your own stories are you telling? Like, how vulnerable are you?
A lot. I poured a lot of my soul into these pages, and it was a process, man. I poured like 100% in, and then I ended up editing some stuff, because that it's a process about like what really serves the storyline. Because a lot happened to me in my life so far.
Right.
And I don't just want to like spew everything. I want it to like, I want everything that I share to be kind of like a gem that sort of like gets you to like where it's all headed.
Right. Tell a story, but you don't want to overdo it,
Yeah.
overshare. So what, you're getting back into the studio?
I'm always in the studio. Like, I'm always in my creative process. Like, I was writing music earlier today. I have been back in the studio in the last couple weeks. Thinking about maybe heading over to Hong Kong to work on some music over there. And just always like a stream of just creativity for me, because that's really my practice.
Right. That's fascinating.
Music,
Yeah.
art, yoga.
I just went back to our hometown. I had a huge deadline for my editor to get X amount of words done. And I went up there for 4 days.
It's
And
beautiful.
it was, no phone, walked everywhere, rode.
I love the Bay Area, man.
Yeah, it was good.
Bay Area's been good to me.
It's a good place. All right. Any final thoughts here, MC Yogi?
I just feel like I really feel like you and me should work something out where you could be like my backup dancer, or like a stunt double.
I'm ready.
Or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I used to do a little hip hop for those of you
See?
who don't know. Before Google, though.
We could do that Kid and Play one where
That's
you hook
right.
your foot and jump around.
That's excellent.
I got a couple moves I can show you.
I'm sure you do. Halloween party. Before we close, I wanted to thank you for being here. And MC Yogi's here to support a nonprofit that I am a huge supporter of, which is called One Recovery. And one, like the digit recovery.com, is their website. And it's an arts-infused student support system that helps kids who are feeling disenfranchised, or the graffiti artist or the skateboarder or surfer who doesn't fit necessarily into that algorithm and to that chain of command that our schools have. and it puts them in front of people and experiences, and it helps them interpret how to navigate that without having to use substances or be arrested, for lack of a better example. And we're always looking for conscious contributors, people to do art with kids, donate funds to the cause on onerecovery.com. And MC Yogi, you can follow him on social media and check out his new book, Spiritual Graffiti, which hits the shelves in September.
This September, and you can stay in touch on Instagram, because that's my newest addiction. And so I'm working on that.
Yeah, your Insta game is strong.
It's all right. I mean, I'm just trying to like put my phone down long enough to enjoy this life.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Take
brother.
care.